Hello, I am Dan Jackson and I am in Sarasota, Florida. It's quite chilly outside actually today, which is a bit of a surprise because I've been in hot weather for a long time. Now in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about cash flow. Now this is going to be cash flow for startups, small or medium businesses. Now I am a tradesman by trade. I was an electrician, so a lot of it's going to be relative to trades, but it also is going to be relative to other industries and businesses as well. So my background is that I left school and I became an electrician. I've done an apprenticeship. Aged 22, I set up an electrical contracting firm, and the summer of this year, August 2018, I left the UK with my wife and two young children, my 1-year-old and my 4-year-old, to travel the world. So we travel the world full time, and it is absolutely fantastic. So we had a dream, me and my wife had a dream. We were so fed up with life. We were so fed up with the routine, the mundaneness of general day-to-day life, and we wanted adventure in our life, and we wanted to spend time together. So we put steps in progress over a course of time to create a better work-life balance, to the point where we now travel. That's the main thing we do, but we do work as we move. We work digitally. So in this video, we are talking about cash flow. So what is cash flow? Cash flow is quite simple. It's the flow of money that comes into the business and out of the business. It's really important, and poor cash flow can completely destroy businesses. So it's important to get money in and to go out and, keep the flow rolling. So I'm giving, some of this is going to be very relative obviously to tradesmen, but I feel others can benefit from it as well. It's all from my real life experience. I don't just read things in books like this and go, this is what I think you should do. I have done this, like first-hand experience, and I've had battles, I've had ups, I've had downs, and I'm just sharing my experiences with you to help you. So let's talk about cash flow. So typically as a tradesman, generally you quote a job or whatever, you do the job, and then you are paid once the job is complete. Now, obviously there's some issues there because you might need to buy materials, you may need to spend some time doing some stuff beforehand, and you don't get paid until once the job is done. Now, obviously you can get further issues if there's delays in payment or no payment at all. So there's obviously a risk there because you've got to pay out for materials. Sometimes you might have credit accounts with suppliers, which is fantastic because they might give you 30 days terms, 60 terms, sometimes 90-day terms or whatever. But some, one-man bands, for example, some of them I know that you might buy materials there and then, and sometimes you might be in a situation where you do need to buy materials there and then and you have no credit. So obviously that affects cash flow because it might be a hell of a long time. So it's all about getting money into the bank quickly. So have a think about this. First of all, as a business, how are you taking payment? It's really important, like stupidly important, that some people don't seem to realise that. So there's different ways. You can be paid cash, you can be paid check, you can be paid bank transfer, or you can take card payments. There's different ways of taking payments. Now, I've always steered away from taking cash because it is a pain. I had people working for me. I didn't want my engineers handling cash, not because I didn't trust them. It's more so because it could get lost because I don't see them that often. And I do things digitally. So, and also you usually get charged to pay cash into a bank with a business banking account and stuff like that. So I tried to steer away from that. So, and also, we won't go into it too much, but there's a lot of tradesmen, they'll take the cash, instead of going to the bank with it, they put it in their back pocket, and that causes a lot of problems in the industry as well, but that's for another day. Checks, very outdated. With my bank account now, I don't even have a checkbook. I don't use checks, so I've always steered away from checks. And again, I used to be charged to pay checks into the bank, and you physically need to go to the bank to pay a check in. So I steer towards bank transfer and card payments. So bank transfer is a free way where somebody can go onto the online banking and pay you money, bang, it's in your bank straight away. That's the quickest, easiest way. But sometimes it's aggravation for people who aren't very quickly set up with bank payment, because it is a pain in the arse for some people to do that. It is for me sometimes when I have to pay someone new, but it's just something to consider. And I also took card payments. So I had a supplier that, they could call me, the client could call me up and they could use their card to pay over the phone. Nice and simple. Now, if you're interested in who I recommend, please get in touch and I'll let you know who I've used and my recommendations. So the problem with that sometimes is that they charge a transaction fee and a percentage, but sometimes you've got to sum up what's quicker time-wise, because remember, your money, your time is precious. You've got to make sure you're doing things quickly and efficiently. Sometimes if they're charging like 1% or whatever, sometimes that's quicker and easier to do than it is to take checks or cash or whatever and go to the bank. So sometimes you have to, work that out yourself and figure out what's easier. And what I used to do is cap the amount that people could pay card payments. So for example, it might be £500 because you don't want to be charged 1% of £5,000 or whatever, or bigger jobs. So you can cap it and do whatever you want to do. It depends. It's up to you. Now, a lot of people, when they start up businesses, even like small businesses or tradesmen, they always say to me, should I get a bank loan to pay for these things and get some money in a bank? Now, I've never borrowed from a bank for business ever. I don't like banks. I think they're all crooks, if I'm honest. What they do is they take your money, they gamble it however they want to do. They gamble your money, your money, and then they dictate to you and charge you more for your money that you've given them, and dictate to you when you can have it and what you can do with it. I just don't like the idea of it, because remember, it's just numbers at the end of the day. So I would avoid it at all costs, because as a small business and a startup, believe me, banks do not care about you whatsoever. They only care about figures. They don't care emotionally if you're struggling. They don't care that you might lose your house if you can't make a payment on time. You just get charged more and more and more and more. So I would avoid it at all costs. So to me, it's about just getting money into the bank quickly. So when you do a job, you need to invoice as quickly as you possibly can. And I mean, like, literally, the quicker you can get money into the bank, the easier and quicker and better your cash flow is. So there's no point doing a job and invoicing a month later, because you've done a job, you've paid out for materials, and you're not being paid for a long time. That negatively affects your cash flow. It's a bad practice. So it's all about invoicing as soon as possible. So a job is not done, especially in the electrical trade, a job is not done until the paperwork is done. You have to do certification. Under the electricity at work regulations, you're supposed to prove that the electrical system is safe. So you should be certificating things literally as soon as possible. I'm not saying it needs to be issued straight away, but you should be certificating. So if it's been certificated, why can't it be issued, immediately? So you've got to get your paperwork in order and your invoicing out as soon as possible. So what I used to do for jobs was, I used to go to a job, I used to quote a job and put all the stuff together. And I've got a CRM system that basically is a database, and it keeps all information about clients. They're fantastic things. Again, I can recommend what one I use. They're not actually that expensive. Even if you're a one-man band and you've just got one license, some of them out there are very beneficial to you because they can save you time. You can invoice from them. You can do all sorts. So I used to set up a client on my database and store all information. So all survey notes and everything was all stored on there. So it's nice, quick and efficient. And I actually used to, when they used to confirm the work, I used to send them the invoice there and then. So they've got the invoice. And I used to make sure that they confirm what we are doing for the money that they're paying, confirm the money, and set out, when we're starting and stuff like that. And I used to get the client to confirm back to me, agreeing all of that. So there's no argument. So, I used to invoice literally immediately, straight away. And that's important because the quicker you invoice, the quicker you can get paid. It's very, very simple. Now, we'll talk about deposits and stage payments later on. So the quicker you invoice, the better. And so I used to invoice before, and some clients used to say, well, you're sending me the invoice now. And I'm like, what matter does it make if I send it now or if I send it later on? You agree when you're getting paid, but we're going to that in a minute. So but there's no harm them having it there and then. Now, on your invoice, do me a favour. State what you are actually doing for the amount. So it could even be electrical works as per quote, WX9Z or whatever. Don't just put electrical work, because that means nothing, especially if you work for other, organisations or companies. They might be getting several of these invoices from different companies. It doesn't actually state what you are actually doing. It just says electrical work. So, be detailed with what you're writing and what they're getting for their money. Because if you work for somebody with like a finance department and they just see something that says electrical work, they can go, well, what did they actually do? It's about, making sure your paperwork is in detail. So it's really important. And also on your invoices, or however you communicate with them, make them aware how they need to pay. There's no point sending an invoice and making it hard and to find the information on how to pay. So I used to write, detail what we've done, and then say you can pay via method A or B. It's up to you. Bank transfer, or you can call up card payment. This is what you need to do. Put your bank details on there. Put the card payment details. The number, who you call. Make it very, very easy for people. People like the path of least resistance. Make it easy, so all they've got to do is click a button, and the information is all there. It's all nice and simple. So, think about that. Now, the paperwork of a job is really important because the idea of a business is that you're getting more money in than is going out. So you need to get the flow right. And obviously, you can come stuck with issues with payments if they're being delayed or you're not getting paid. So you need to keep money coming in. Now, any legal person out there will tell you that you need a professional set of terms and conditions. Now, to a degree, of course you do. You need something, terms and conditions, to protect yourself and also to protect the other person. Now, I've had quotes before from solicitors who set up terms and conditions for my previous company, and they were quoting something like $5 grand, $6 grand, $7 grand. It was crazy. But what I actually done is when I set up my business, I had some terms and conditions which I used from a quote that I had, and I just adapted them over time. Now, obviously, I've done 3 different types of services. We've done maintenance work, which was kind of like prepaid for the year. We've done quoted works, and we've done emergency work. So they're paid in 3 different ways. And the terms and conditions, you'd have to have 3 different sets of terms and conditions for the 3 different types of payments. And that's why it can be quite expensive, and there can be a lot of issues. And I've had terms and conditions, I've had all paperwork on jobs before, and I've still not been paid. It doesn't guarantee, it just increases the chances of being paid. So sometimes you have to weigh that up, but you don't have to spend loads and loads of money for a decent set of terms and conditions. You can find things online and you can adapt them over time, and that's the best thing about being a business. You're not going to know all these things from day one. You never are. It's something, as a business owner, when you set out in business, it's something that you learn and you grow and you develop over time. It's fantastic. It's great. It develops you as a person, you as a business. So, terms and conditions, I personally wouldn't fork out loads and loads of money unless you had to for a particular type of contract. But you do have to have something there. Now, what's important about paperwork is that I know a lot of electricians out there who will write up quotes, and it's not very detailed at all. It will just say 5 sockets, blah blah blah. Now, I used to really detail what the client was getting for the money, because then there's no argument. So it would say 1 socket in the kitchen above the telly, 1 socket in there. Now, you might think that, oh, this is all a waste of time and stuff like that, and arguably you could spend less time if you just put 1 socket, but it's just to save your bacon if if there's an issue further down the line, I feel. And I just feel that we should be open and honest about what the client is getting, so there's no argument. Because what you got to remember, you working for a client is a relationship. Now, in a relationship, either party has to get out of what they want from that relationship. Otherwise, there's going to be arguments, there's going to be tension. You don't want that. You want it to be nice and smooth. You want them to know what they're getting, and you need to know what you are giving them, and understanding everybody gets paid, everybody's happy. That's how it works. Let's make it nice and easy for everybody. So paperwork is really important. So I would always take survey notes. When I went and looked at a job, I would write in detail a quotation. It'll be item 1, socket in the kitchen. Item 2, consumer unit replacement under the stairs. Item 3, and say what I'm doing for that. Are they getting RCBOs, MCBs and RCDs or whatever? Really detail as much as possible. Because I used to do a lot of quoting, a lot of it was just templates. I just copy and pasted and change the locations, because actually it was quite simple and easy, and once you get into the flow of it, it's quite quick. So then I would have terms and conditions of the work as well. So I had my T's and C's on there. I'd also state how things are going to get paid, when they're going to get paid, and really detail. Now, I used to then get them to email me back confirmation when they agree they want to do the work, email them back confirming the price, the job, referencing the quote number and everything else, and just a confirmation. And at that point, that's when I would send out invoice and any necessary paperwork before I started a job, to make sure that everybody's happy and clear. Now, I understand in the real life, in the real world, everybody wants things done lastminute.com all the time. Now, when you do that, the problem with that is that things do get missed, but then that's risk. So you need to try and get into the flow and rhythm of allowing enough time for these jobs and preparation beforehand, instead of doing it, the night before and stuff like that. Like, do it a few days before, send all out the information beforehand, because believe me, when you prepare for a job, it goes better. Honestly, and it reduces risk of something going wrong. So used to do the job and used to do the paperwork on site there and then. So all certification. I used to get the one of my engineers to take photos of all the work he's done, and it all gets saved onto my database. Now, I don't give everything to the client. I just give them what they need to have. So they used to get the certification, any notifications to building control, or anything OLEV, confirmation that things have been set off or whatever. So used to give them all literally as soon as possible. Now, if I could do it on the same day, I would. If it would be the next day, it would be the next day. But don't get into the trap of doing it at the end of the month, right? If at latest at the end of the week. Now, I appreciate as a one-man band, it is harder, but you need to factor into your time that you need to be doing paperwork, whether it's lastthing.com before you go home, or you get home, you do it in your home office, or you do it first thing in the morning. Now, I think we should go home, and I think we should be able to spend time with our families and do what we've got to do, so work doesn't consume us. But you need to factor this into your time to make sure that you allow enough time for the paperwork side, because it is really important. Because it's all very well getting all these orders in, but if you're not completing the work that you're supposed to have done, including paperwork, you won't get paid. It's pointless. It's pointless getting orders if you can't complete everything, including the paperwork. So you get the gist. Get the paperwork in, make it easy for people as much as possible to make a payment. Then there's absolutely zero argument. So I had a situation once where I'd done a job and I was taken for £60,000. They didn't pay £60,000. That's a lot of money. That's a hell of a lot of money. That hurt. That hurt a lot. So this particular job, I had purchase orders. I had terms and conditions, professional terms and conditions, had detailed quotation specification that was all set out. I was even paid something like a 16k or 20k or whatever deposit. I was even paid at the beginning. This person didn't pay because he was basically a crook, and he clearly has done it to other people. And it was tough. It was tough. It was a hard call because legally I'd done everything I was supposed to, but still didn't get paid. There was no argument to say that the job wasn't done correctly. They liked the job. It was a very, very good job. And it's bitter because when I've gone into that place and seen it. But I pity people like that. I pity people who, are crooks like that in that way. I feel sorry for them. But anyway, that's for another time. So what I learned from this was that, well, I had 60k. I had to pay out suppliers, I had to pay out my guys, I had to pay for other jobs. So I had a 60k, shortfall in my finances, and that almost crippled us. So what I'd done instead was I was like, crap, I need to get money into the bank pretty fast. Now, that was just one job. I had a lot of jobs on the go. Obviously, if I was a one-man band and I had a 60k shortfall, I'd be done, finished, and that is that. But that's why you shouldn't take on too much. If you are a smaller company, take on what's relative to the size of your business. And so what I'd done, and I realised that I need to get money into the bank really, really quick. So what I'd done was reduce the amount of work that I'd done. Yes, I'd done less work. Now, you might think, why on earth are you doing that? You need to get money in. But what I actually done was I evaluated my clients and looked at who was good payers and who was bad payers. If you're a good payer, you're on the Santa's good list, right? I'd continue working for you. If you're on the bad list, as I used to take 60 days to pay when it's supposed to be 30, or we used to have to argue for the money a lot of the time, and it's for no reason, you're just being your accounts team are just arseholes or whatever. I didn't work for you anymore. It caused a lot of problems, but what it done was it allowed for the good payers, for the money to come in, to reduce the bad debt and the bad cash flow. So that was one thing. The next thing was that I started introducing people paying up front. So for example, if you was a new client, or even existing clients, for example, and it was like a £500 job, you pay up front. Also larger jobs, for example, it would be a 50% deposit, or it would be stage payments depending on the type of work, and used to heavily have deposits and money come into the bank quickly. So what that allowed for, and what it actually done is a lot of new customers and some existing as well, they used to be like, well, other people don't charge that. And what I say to everybody is that when that's said to me, I say, I don't care about AA Electrical or ZB Electrical or whoever down the road. I'm Dan Jackson, this is my business, and this is how we do things. I don't care about what anybody else, that doesn't concern me. This is my business. Now, what I learned quickly, a person who argues against paying a deposit is always the same person who argues against paying a payment if there was no deposit and they're paying at the end as well. It's the same type of person. If you have a person who's like, okay, deposit, cool, just pay that, they tend to be the good payers who will pay at the end of the work as well. Now, it's a very interesting lesson. If you ever look up law of attraction, if you want to attract the type of person around you and things into your life, you have to go about a way of attracting that. So for me, I don't want to be working for a client who wants to pay £150 a day for an electrician. I want to work for a client who pays £400 a day for an electrician. That is my client. So I don't want to work for the lower, someone who wants a poorer job done. I want to work for someone who's willing to pay money for a good service. And obviously I provide that in return. So, you attract your client. And I found by this process, and it fizzled out all the bad people. So by the end, I was working for some fantastic clients, fantastic payers. Money was kind of minute. It got me out of the £60,000 deficit that, God knows, because I had to sacrifice a lot of things. Like I couldn't have time off work, I had to work, I couldn't go away with my family, couldn't afford certain things that year. Things like Christmas were tight and stuff like that. So, but it was better doing that than it was the company going tits up, suppliers not being paid, and also, getting rid of guys who are out of jobs and stuff like that. Now, one important thing about what I'd done as well was, and it's my next point, is about getting credit from suppliers. Now, what you've got to bear in mind is wholesalers, for example, they tend to have a lot of money in the bank, and the reason they have that is because they need to buy a lot. So, they usually have things going in and out quite quickly. They tend to, these larger companies, for example, they have a lot more in the bank than you do. So I actually asked my supplier if they could extend terms on the payment, because I had something like 16k pounds worth, £60,000 worth of light fittings to pay for. And I just asked them to extend terms. Now, this is the important thing here, is that if it was just a company that I didn't have a good relationship, they'll probably say, do one, But because I had a good relationship with the person, they're willing to help me. Now, this is really important. Business is about relationships. People buy from people. People work from people. All this, you're just talking to a screen. You don't have a good relationship with somebody. Whereas if you have a customer, or you have a supplier or an engineer who works for you, and you have a good relationship with that person, you're more emotionally attached, and you're more willing to help out that person, and vice versa if there is an issue. It's just how we work as humans. So, relationships are key. So build a relationship with a supplier. He was willing to help us out. It's no skin off his nose, because he wants to get paid as well. So it helped, we're all a team. The supplier, the electrician, the engineers doing the job, the client, or anybody who's involved. We're all part of a team to get a job done. So it's important that everybody does their bit. So when there's a shortfall like that, we got helped out, and everything continued, and he continued getting paid. So he wants to continue getting paid in business and so forth. So, credit is really important, especially when you're in a trade, for example, because you don't want to have to pay for, like, say, £1,000 for a job before you've done it, and then wait 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, to get paid once you've bought those materials on day one. So it's important to, get credit terms as much as you can and build your credit up. And that's also why I don't like cash, because cash doesn't exist. If it's going in your back pocket instead of into the bank, it doesn't exist, and your credit rating doesn't go up. So, you struggle. And believe me, banks, after a while in business, after I think being 5 years in business, and they saw our balance sheets, they were trying to sell us products left, right and centre, when in the beginning they didn't want to help out with anything. It's funny that's because they're selfish. Anyway, my thoughts on banks. So yes, it's important to get credit, because obviously that's money going out, and it's important that you pay people when you need to as well, your guys, and your suppliers, because if you don't pay them when you're supposed to, they're less likely to help you out anymore. They might not work for you, or they might refuse you business. So it's important to get that money in so it can go out to the relevant people. Everybody needs paying, and you're all part of this big process together. So these are the processes that are really important. Also, you may want to consider, like I said, deposits. I used to charge 50% deposits on certain type of works, and it worked an absolute treat. So they would pay up front, and payment was basically confirmation that we'd be doing the work as well. And in stage payments, if you're doing a job, if you're a one-man band, for example, and you're doing a job for 2 months, you might want to be paid fortnightly, even weekly, although that's a bit of a pain, to be honest, or 3 payments throughout the whole thing. But set that out in the terms and conditions before, and agree it with the client in writing, so there's no ambiguous problem at all and interpretation. So and one thing that I used as a great tool was to ensure that I was credit checking new companies. So you can buy a package online where you can actually credit check companies. I'm not sure if you can do it for consumers directly, like customers directly, but for businesses and that, all their information and credit information is online. It's free to access, but this tool it's a quick buy bypass the process of looking into their accounts. So you can, if they flag up red, for example, you might be like, oh, I don't want to work for that person, or it might allow you to not give them any credit terms. You might say everything's up front, or payment up front, or you might reduce how many days you want them to be paid in. I mean, any company, I used to do 30-day payments for companies that I had a good relationship with, but anything less than that, it would be I want them to pay me the final balance within 5 days, just to help my cash flow. And it works an absolute treat, and a lot of maintenance works with all upfront stuff, and it works very well. So think about credit checking companies. There's a lot of information online that you can look up about companies as well. So yes, those are important steps. The other thing is that when I used to do a job as well, I used to do a worksheet. Now, this used to be electronic. So at the end of the job, no matter if it's a call out, quoted works, large works, they would sign something to say, I am happy and satisfied with the work completed, and it references the quote, it references what you've done. And so there's no argument to say that you haven't completed that work. So if it came to court or whatever, you've got all the information there to say you should be paid. There's no reason for you not to. So paperwork is so important. As a business, to make sure it's all there, and to make sure everybody knows. Don't hide anything. Basically, don't literally hide anything. And I've had before where people have said to me, "I don't know you, and you want me to pay you £1,000 up front," and I'm like, "Yep," and they're like, "Yeah, but you might take that money and run." And I'm like, "Look, search me online, right? Search my name, search my company, try and find a bad review about anything like that. I dare you, go Google it now, and you won't find anything." So I have an online presence, for example. People can put trust into me, into my services, so there's no reason for them to feel like they're going to get done over. And I think that's really important. So building trust and that relationship with a new client. And I never had problems. And if I had someone who wasn't too keen on the idea, I usually find that type of person is someone who will knock you for money anyway. So, there we go. Now, if you're interested in any of the stuff that I've mentioned or things that I used to do, by all means get in touch. Now, I also do one-on-one coaching over the web with webcam, with businesses, whether you're a one-man band or a bigger business or whatever, about business tips and ideas on this to help your business and to give you an idea. Now, the good thing about me is that I'm impartial, so I look at your business from an outside perspective, because you can be in your own little bubble as much as you want, in your own little bubble, and sometimes it's hard to change your way of thinking. So for me, it's like an outsider. I'm looking at it and saying, look, there's a shortfall there. What about this? I don't tell you what to do. You've got to do it yourself. I just guide and give you information from experience. So if you're interested in any sessions on that, I do half-hour sessions. If you book a few, you get a free session at the beginning as well. And that's something I do now, and to help people from my horrible experiences and my good experiences. I'm going to leave you now. I've got some other videos coming out on business ideas and tips. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on another one. See you later.